Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mind of Sai Marie. Today, we are looking at the roots of resilience and the fragility of our foundations, specifically the foundations of our health, our habits, and our inner strength. My guest today has created a deeply transformative framework that serves as a powerful lens for how we break free from the invisible chains holding us back. Jessi Hartnett is a former smoker turned powerful guide and the author of Honor Your Heart, Your Path to Stop Smoking and Stay Stopped. Her work is a profound exploration of what happens when we confront our fears, break the psychological cycles of addiction, and look to the heart as a resource for lasting change. Jessi, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you.
So, you've mapped out the anatomy of addiction in your book, a cycle built on deeply ingrained habits and psychological excuses. What was it about the ultimate breaking point of that cycle that made you want to dive into this specific story of personal transformation?
Yeah, so I was having a really rough time quitting. I was getting super frustrated, having tried to quit dozens of times, just banging my head against the wall. And the way that I was always trying to quit was through willpower. And willpower had served me well in many places in my life. And so it didn't make any sense to me why it couldn't work with smoking. I'm a very disciplined person. I'm a hard worker, but no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much effort I put into it, I wasn't able to get over the hump of smoking. And so what helped me to ultimately quit and realize what was going on underneath the surface was to understand that smoking was an emotional thing, because there's so much, especially with nicotine, because I was both nicotine and a cannabis user, and with nicotine particularly, there's this narrative that it's a physical addiction. It requires medical intervention, being treated like that. But for me and for many others, it's an emotional cycle. And so I guess what prompted me to start this work and go in a different direction was just getting so frustrated, going weeks without smoking, going months without smoking, and still finding myself going back. So what it really took was me having a shift from just being frustrated and very critical of myself and just angry about the situation, and instead looking to get more curious. Why do I keep going back? Why do I need this thing in my life outside of myself? What is it doing for me? And can I get that in other places? And so asking those questions kind of guided me through this. And as I started to get the answers, I didn't really like them. It was very disturbing when I started to come to terms with how much self-hatred I had for myself and the disconnection I had to myself and to others and to the world, and the kind of beliefs that I had cornered myself in, thinking that life is meaningless and we're all random accidents. And as I started to pick those apart while also exploring spiritual concepts, I was able to kind of shift those beliefs and really transform my life in a meaningful way, that to not only quit smoking, but just to find happiness and to reconnect with myself.
So, Honor Your Heart explores how easily we can drift into complacency using excuses to mask our fears of quitting. Why do you think this theme of deep societal and individual awakening to our health resonates so deeply with readers in today's high stress climate?
Well, we live in a loud, busy, modern world where, we have a lot pushed onto us from society that tells us, we're not good enough, or we need something outside of ourselves to be happy, and that supports the society we live in, the capitalist system. And so I think that a lot of people are feeling that there's something missing within them. And in my case, that was part of my addiction cycle, was that me looking outside, trying to fill this void within me because I didn't feel enough. And, it's not only, this isn't written in our cultural landscape, but, it's things that are passed on from our families. Every family has problems like this. Every kid gets wounded. It's just part of the nature of things. So I think it's particularly relevant. Like, I think that a lot of people live in addiction, whether it's a substance use or, it could be something like scrolling on your phone or eating, or there's so many different ways that we try to escape ourselves, our reality, those crazy thoughts that we have in our head that overwhelm us, that tell us that we're not good enough or whatever we have going on with our self-talk. And so I think it's relevant to anyone in modern society today to make the effort to connect with themselves and to have time where they're not distracted and they can be present with themselves and they can slow down, and there's not anything to do. There's not any need to be anything, just to really connect with who they are and to accept things the way that they are. And like I said, this is very counterculture, but I think that it has a big impact on our mental health.
So, you focus beautifully on the social and internal web of our mindsets, highlighting how the heart acts as a tool for liberation. How do you write about a person who is losing their clarity to addiction without losing hope in the strength of the individual themselves?
So it was very difficult when I was able to get out of addiction. I kind of thought that once I'm free, then I'll be happy and all these things. But what actually ended up happening that surprised me was that I had an enormous amount of regret as I truly moved past the hump of addiction and was just like, I'm not going back. I'm moving into this new life and I like it. I actually felt a lot of sadness that I had spent so much time in addiction and that I felt like I had lost a lot, not even just time, but like my trust in myself and some physical symptoms as well. Like I had gum disease, I have to deal with that every time I go to the dentist. Like there's these lasting effects that have come from addiction. And so what helped me to come to terms with that is to see that addiction, especially the struggle of getting out and the pain and discomfort and trials and tribulations that you go through to get to the other side of it, actually serve us and can be a benefit. So I kind of had this mindset when I was in it that like I'm already damaged goods, so might as well just keep going. But we're amazingly resilient and we can actually gain a lot once we go through the other side, because I believe that wisdom has a cost. You can't really know something until you've had a challenge, until you've been knocked down. And so I think that even if you're feeling laid low, and I've really been there where it felt like it didn't really matter if I lived or died. I was just trying to survive, each day at a time and just get through. I didn't really feel connected to anyone, including myself, most of all. And I just want to let you know that you can come back from that. That's not a permanent state. And that can actually be of benefit to you. We have to kind of go through the dark night of the soul, walk through the fire, go through the dark forest to get to somewhere meaningful. So it's all part of the path. And it doesn't mean you've made a wrong choice or that like anything is lost. It's just you're in between, you're on the threshold of something greater, and you're so close. You're a lot closer than you think you are.
In your book, individuals have to pivot away from a physical dependence and realign toward a hard earned internal power. Based on your journey, what do you think is the hardest thing for a person to reclaim once their autonomy has been lost to addiction?
The connection to ourselves. And for me, that is most obvious in the form of intuition. So I believe that every person has intuition. Some tend to be more intuitive than others naturally, but it's something we all have within us. And it's outside of our logical mind that's like always planning and organizing and very rigid and particular and really likes those patterns. The intuition nudges us somewhere maybe we haven't been before, but it's really what's in our best interest. And I think that with substance use and addiction cycles that we become disconnected from that intuitive guidance because we start to see the rush, the addiction as the only solution to most of our problems. So like I would smoke for crazy circumstances, just like I'm hungry, time to smoke. I'm thirsty, time to smoke. Like it was inappropriate. It didn't actually match the needs. I had become so disconnected from what I truly needed and was always looking to smoking to fulfill that. And so I think that I wasn't able to care for myself in a way where you kind of just get on this runaway train where you feel worse because of the addiction, but it's the only thing you know what to turn to. And so coming back to the intuition can be so empowering because we are all unique and there's not going to be the same solution for every person because we all have different unique wounds. We all have different bodies. And so the intuition can give us specifically what we need to get out of addiction, to take care of ourselves, and to really find joy and peace in life. But it takes practice. So the first time I smoked, and many people have a bad reaction the first time they smoke. Like my body was like, no, I don't like this. My throat was sore. My eyes were watering and coughing. Everything in my body was saying, no, don't do this. But the needs I had at that time at being so young, just 13 years old, overrode all of that. It was more of me wanting to belong, wanting to be an adult, wanting to have some kind of initiation to be a part of a community and move out of childhood. And so that need was much greater than all the signs from my intuition that were saying, don't do this. So I think that, and as addicts, many times we have those calls when we wake up in the morning and, aren't feeling our best, when we're, out of breath, when we go to do our budget and we see like, hey, this isn't working out. There's so many different reminders that we can have that voice that says, I need to stop this, but we will ignore it because of our need for patterns. So the mind really likes patterns for survival, even if they're actually ultimately undermining us. It's part of how the mind works. It's just very logical and wants to stay the same. And so intuition, I believe, comes from the heart. It's a gift from the heart. It's not logical. And many times we can get answers from our intuition that we don't actually want to do because it's scary, it's new, it's uncomfortable. But that's ultimately what's going to guide us towards living our best life and being growing and developing instead of staying stagnant and stuck the same.
We talk a lot about reclaiming empowerment on this show. In your world, empowerment looks like an awakening to the heart's true capacity. What can readers learn from the quiet resilience of those who choose to see the cracks in their health and face their fears before a total physical collapse happens?
Yeah, I think that living from the heart can open so many doors, as I was just talking about, with the mind kind of keeping us limited, and that the heart can really help us understand who we are and what we really have to bring into the world. And I think that it can happen at any point. So unfortunately, like many people, if they smoke for several years, they can get sick. And like I said, it's that mentality like, well, I'm already damaged goods, why quit? But it's never too late to tap into the heart, tap into that self love, to come into a quality of life. It's not even so much about avoiding ultimate degradation. It's about improving your quality of life and your relationship to yourself and being okay emotionally, not needing anything outside of yourself to rely on to be okay, because that's how it was for me and that's how it is for many people, whether we realize it or not. It really takes looking inward and a quietness within ourselves to even hear these thoughts. I feel like so many of us run on autopilot. Like I said, we live busy lives. We're in go, 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 go mode. And we don't even understand that we might be using smoking to suppress our emotions. But you can start to see it when you put smoking to the side or any addiction to the side. When you start to take it away and you start feeling enormous amount of sadness or anger or kind of going into this grieving cycle, it can become very clear that the addiction is a tool for emotional suppression. So the heart allows us to have our feelings, but to be safe and to let our love and compassion and grace and all these things that make being human amazing accessible to us again, so that we can keep going through life and it be something beyond just this physical body, but be, like I said, truly human and truly connected.
So the road to transforming your own life and then distilling that wisdom into a guide for others is long and often humbling. What was the biggest level up you had to experience as an author to handle such heavy psychological and philosophical themes while keeping the guide immersive, practical, and deeply human?
So I actually started writing when my daughter was born. So the way that I frame quitting smoking is as an initiation. Like I mentioned earlier, many of us start as young people looking for an initiation into adulthood. But I see the smoking as a false initiation. And the real initiation for me was quitting smoking because it was so difficult. I had to really disintegrate myself and come back together to have a new identity. And really, it wasn't like I became someone new. It's like I took off the layers and came back to myself, came back home. And so I did all that work and I was like, great, I had my initiation. I truly feel like an adult. I feel like I know who I am and what I want in life and what I value. And I'm not afraid to shine out, to be myself, even if other people don't like it all the time. That's fine. I get to be me and it's so rewarding. And I thought I was done with the work, but then I had a baby. And that tore me to pieces again. I just broke open, had to go through this whole process again. And so I think going through it twice helped me understand the framework in a way that I hadn't before. I definitely didn't understand it when I went through it with quitting smoking. It's kind of one of those things that you just can't see when you're in it. It's only when you get past that you can look back and understand, hey, I went through these cycles that I can, clearly point to and explain to other people. And so, like I said, I think going through it twice, it wasn't as scary for me the second time. Definitely was still scary and hard, but I felt like I knew I could do it. And that's one of the gifts I talked about of going through an addiction, is that you have a confidence in yourself. You have a trust in yourself that even when things get hard, you'll make it and you'll survive and you'll learn something, that it's actually serving you in some way, even if you can't see it yet. And so that's why when my daughter was born, that's why I had a whole different life where days were very slow. I was able to stay home with her and care for her. And creativity was just like ignited in me from seeing her just beauty and her wonder with the world and just her amazement with every little thing. And it's really starting to make me more creative and to notice more things and think more often. So that's when I started writing again. And it had been so long. I hadn't written in decades because I was really on the science track. It's like, I don't write, like, we can get locked into these identities, like I said, or this idea of who we think we are, personality, but we really have everything accessible to us. Sometimes we just forget. And I actually really enjoyed writing as a child. So it was fun for me to start writing again. And the thing that coming up again and again was my experience with addiction. And so that's why I decided to write Honor Your Heart and to share some of the lessons that I learned and I thought could be helpful for someone else to kind of see what they're going through is meaningful instead of just the narrative that we get a lot from the medical side of things. It's like, just get through it, just get the nicotine out of your system and you'll be fine. Because I just see quitting smoking as such a ripe opportunity for personal transformation. It can be so much greater than that, than just getting rid of this habit that we are ashamed of or don't like, that we can really get to know ourselves and to enter a new phase of life and have true renewal in our life.
Your book deals heavily with internal leadership under fire, staying strong when the cravings hit and the old patterns try to take over. When a person's old defense mechanisms start to burn away, does the role of the individual change from a passive thinker to an active, empowered doer?
Yeah, it could kind of sound like a lot like willpower, and I think there is some willpower involved. It's just not entirely relying on willpower alone because it's learning how to nurture and care for ourselves and meet our genuine needs in a way that is sustainable and lasting and fulfilling so that we don't need the smoking anymore. And so I think that that curiosity can come into play with that. When those old patterns come up, simply asking yourself why can slow down the momentum of that, where it's not just a reflex going back to the old thing that you know. It's slowing down. And it's okay to make those mistakes, to go back and ask yourself then, did I get what I was looking for? Am I truly fulfilled by this? Why, you can kind of break it down after the fact at any point in the process. It doesn't have to be, because it takes a lot of practice and consistency. And so I think just the practice with it does increase the confidence, does create power, because you can get through it once, you can do it through it again. And even if you fall and make a mistake, you can get back up. So it's more about just keeping at it and learning along the way.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone currently feeling those first cracks of desperation or readiness to change their life's direction, what would that be?
Then it's okay to feel. As I mentioned before, I think that a lot of times when we have unwanted emotions, we reach for something. We want it to go away. And if we allow ourselves to face the emotion head on, it seems like it might be overwhelming, it might be too much, but it's actually the way to let it go because it's there with us all the time. If we suppress it, we carry it with us. We never get rid of it. It's just lying in wait. And we all know that feeling when we explode about something that isn't really that big of a deal. It's like, where did this come from? And that's from all those stored emotions within us that we weren't allowing to express. So I think that it's allowing anger and sadness in our lives because they're not inherently bad. This is another lesson I learned from my daughter, from my baby, is that, humans are born, they're angry, they're sad, they're crying, they're screaming, and it's okay because it passes quickly. It's a temporary state. And I think that so many of us learn that we're bad. If we have anger, we're a bad person. So I can't ever express anger, but it turns against us and it stews and it brews. And I think that it can really scare us when we go through something like quitting smoking, like losing an addiction, something that we're very comfortable with. Those emotions come up and it can be very frightening. And the impulse is to make it go back away. But like I said, if you can just start to allow it and find ways to express it safely, maybe new ways that you never tried before. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's creatively, maybe it's journaling. It could be, there's so many options to allow that emotion to be present without being unkind to somebody or to being violent or anything like that. So it's not about completely giving into it and letting it overrun your life, but it's about recognizing its worth and working with it because anger can really serve us in a lot of ways. I understand anger now is helping me set boundaries. I had many issues setting boundaries, and once I allowed anger to be present in my life, I'm much more comfortable setting boundaries now, and I don't get frightened of the anger. It helps me. I look at it and I'm like, where is this anger coming from? What does this mean? And is this helping me in some way? So that would be my recommendation, to start working with those emotions and seeing if you can accept them.
Finally, Jessi, if your book were a bridge between the heavy illusions of addiction and the vibrant reality of true health, what is the one virtue or truth you hope people take with them across that bridge?
That we can change, that we really, really can. It doesn't mean much if you've lived your life a whole, to a T, the certain same way with this personality. Those things can change and they're meant to change. That we are not meant to be in one phase of life. Like I said, with the initiation, there are many initiations. Go into midlife, we go into old age, we go into parenting, we come into new careers where we have leadership positions, and there's all sorts of different bridges we can cross in our life, and that it's okay to let go of some of our older self, but it can be painful and uncomfortable, most certainly. Like, it's kind of like an identity death where we let the old part of ourselves go so that we can become something new, so we can let something new in, so that we can uncover parts of ourselves that have been hidden. But it's well worth it, because to stay the same is kind of like a death in itself. And so it's better to let those little deaths show up so that we can live fully whatever phase we need to be entering. And you can feel it. You can feel it within yourself when it's time to move on. So I would say, listen to that intuition, trust yourself, and allow change to happen, because the alternative to that is just going to be stuck in a life that is no longer serving you.
Jessi, thank you for sharing your vision, your vulnerability, and your incredible craft with us today. It's been an inspiring journey into the heart of what allows a person to truly survive, change, and thrive.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your questions.
To everyone listening, go get your hands on Honor Your Heart, Your Path to Stop Smoking and Stay Stopped by Jessi Hartnett. I will have a link in the show notes, of course. It is a powerful, life-changing exploration of integrity, mental alignment, and renewal. And remember, as always, the mind is the most important story that we'll ever tell. Until next time, thank you for listening to The Mind of Sai Marie.